that the cap and trade and the carbon tax schemes that have been proposed, even if one was to believe that carbon dioxide was a poisonous, vile gas that was killing the Earth and not a life-giving fundamental building block of life on the planet Earth, as we know it is, even if one were to believe the anthropogenic climate change scare, of course, these schemes are demonstrably not going to do anything to solve the problem. And if that's the case, what is the real purpose behind these various carbon trading and carbon tax schemes that we've seen proposed and, in some cases, imposed in various nations around the world?
That is a very good question. And let me also add that a worldwide carbon trading scheme is one of the things which is in the Copenhagen Treaty. They are going to inflict this on every nation of the earth, whether the elected governments of those nations want it or not. So this is going to be a worldwide problem. Now, I think the reason that they're doing this is that it gives the dictators complete control over the economies of all nations. If you can say to somebody, if you could say to America, let's take America as the example here. America generates, I think it's 85% of her electricity from fossil fuels. Now, if there is a world government and it wishes to exercise power over America, well, of course, it can use its preemptive power of taxation and just help itself to money from your treasury, because that's one thing that the treaty allows. But on top of that, if it can set a price at which carbon can and cannot be traded, it can effectively, if it wishes to do so, shut down your economy by putting so high a price on carbon that all the Western world's electrical power goes down. And this will not benefit the planet, but it will benefit those forces, and very nasty forces they are too, who have always been bitterly hostile to the success and the liberty and the democracy and the prosperity that we have been fortunate enough to enjoy in the West, and in particular in the United States, which is regarded as the great Satan not just by the lunatic end of Islam, but also by the lunatic end of the international extreme left. And so they now have their opportunity to shut you down. And I don't think you should underestimate the extent to which the haters of freedom and prosperity, who are nihilists and anarchists at heart, they have nothing to offer the world. They have nothing constructive to give. It's all about tearing down that which they don't think that you and I ought to have and enjoy. They want to tear down our democracy, tear down our prosperity, tear down our economy. And if they can find an excuse to do that, which persuades even our own people that there is this wholly imaginary, as we now know it to be, threat to the planet, and therefore they can persuade us to go along with this, and they can persuade politicians like President Obama, who has surrounded himself with people who either have been or appear to be pursuing communist policies, then you can see that they hope that they will get away with it. They began testing the ground on this with the Law of the Sea Treaty 20 years ago. Ron Reagan wouldn't sign it, Clinton would. Then they knew that whoever won the election in the United States this time would be a true believer in this climate nonsense, or would at least pretend to be, because John McCain made the second stupidest statement about climate change that I've seen worldwide, and there have been some pretty stupid ones. The most stupid was that of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. But nevertheless, both parties went into the last election in the United States saying that climate change was a problem. They said that in haste. They said it because they found it politically expedient. They didn't say it for any scientific reason, for at that time the science had not been settled. Now the science has been settled. The effect of carbon dioxide on temperature is minuscule, and therefore there is no basis for any of this nonsense at all.
Absolutely. Well, I think you would join me in urging the listeners to go and read the draft proposal of this treaty for themselves, so that they can come to their own realization about just how incredible this treaty is. But if people do so and then are motivated to ensure the non-ratification of this treaty, what actions do you think will be most productive? And are there any groups or websites that you would recommend for the listeners to go to?
Yes, certainly. The first thing that you should do is get in touch with the White House by email or by telephone. Nothing has more effect in penetrating the minds of those who, at least for the moment, are still subject to your democratic will than you telling them exactly what you think. Ring the White House, that will have more effect than emailing. Email the White House, that will have more effect than writing. Write to the White House if you can't ring or email. But make sure that your opinion is registered there. And do the same with both of your state senators. It doesn't matter what party they belong to. Write to them anyway, but preferably telephone, or if you can't telephone, email. Those are the two things that have the most effect. I was on the Capitol Hill just the other day talking to one of your senators, and he and his staff both said they'd already begun to receive surprisingly large numbers of phone calls and emails about this issue. And the more you do that, the more the Senate, which has to ratify this dismal Copenhagen Treaty by a two-thirds, got to be 67 votes in its favor in order for it to pass. If you get on to your senators, you make absolutely plain what the scale of this monstrous treaty is, and that it would be unthinkable that they should sign away your democracy by ratifying this treaty. If you make that plain to them, that will help a great deal. And the final thing that I'm setting up is I'm trying to put together a document called an Instrument of Repudiation. And this will be for ordinary people to sign. It'll start off by saying, "We, the people of the United States of America." And it will go on to say that we don't believe in climate change anymore because it's now been disproven. We don't believe in the Copenhagen Treaty, and we will remain free. And that Instrument of Repudiation, it's only going to be one page long. It's very simple. That will be posted up. I don't yet know where, but possibly at www.scienceandpublicpolicy.org, which is the website where I publish a lot of my stuff on the climate. Or you may find it also at www.cfact.org. That's the environmental group, the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, which takes a very different line from most environmental groups in being sensible about this climate issue. And you will then be able to sign. You'll be asked to give your email address and your name and your full address so that we know that it's you. And that way, we hope to get literally millions of signatures that I can take with me to Copenhagen between December the 7th and December the 18th, while this treaty is being negotiated, and tell the people there of all nations that the people of the United States will not stand for this treaty, and this treaty shall not pass. So those are some of the things I think you could do.
Well, I think the Instrument of Repudiation is a particularly exciting idea because at least it can demonstrate the fact that this is a completely non-democratic process and that the people's voice is not being heard. And the more we can demonstrate that there's no way for the people to have an input in this process and that the people's voice isn't being heard, and the more we can discredit the system, the better chance we have of really effectively opposing it, I think. So, Lord Monckton, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners today before we leave?
Well, what I'm going to do is to read to you the paragraph from the draft Instrument of Repudiation, which covers the point about democracy that you've just mentioned. We will never be governed by any but them whom we have freely elected, may freely hold to account, and may freely replace. And we will have no unelected, unaccountable, irreplaceable world government set atop of us, or above our beloved Constitution, or over any of the free nations or free markets of the world, and government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Excellent. Well, very stirring words, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And tell us about your website one more time. What's the best website for people to access your work?
If you go to www.scienceandpublicpolicy.org, that's the one to go for. where we hope we'll have this instrument posted shortly. It's just being arranged at the moment because we've got to set up a facility for taking signatures and so forth. That's all being worked on just now. In the next few days, that should go live. And so keep an eye on www.scienceandpublicpolicy.org.
Excellent. Well, I'll certainly be keeping an eye on that and on your work in the future, so best of luck to you. And Lord Monckton, thank you very much for the generous use of your time today.
A real pleasure, and God bless America. We will remain free.